All right. And after this introduction, we are going to now start a webinar. It's going to take more or less 1 hour today. And we are going to review what is the forecast for the cash flows. So basically, the idea is that we might have need to have better insights into the cash flow, which is basically where we have different modules that are generating either expenses or incomes. Accounts receivable, sales, purchase, AP, and so on. And we have the cash flow financial analysis, and we actually have to calculate it regularly on a monthly basis, at least, in order to see how our company is actually going. And Business Central has this type of analysis already for us guys. Plus, we also have Cortana, so we don't only analyze the cash flow for the company, but also we can enable the machine learning Cortana Intelligence to set up the analysis of our entries for the different modules, GL accounts, basically, and then we can forecast the future of our company according to that machine learning experiments that are actually available in Azure in the cloud. So the first thing that we are going to do is just we make sure that with this analysis that we are solvent, the company, and the instruments that we use, like the currency, assets, and all the calculations that we are going to be doing. Well, actually, Cortana is going to be preparing that for us, calculate the cash surplus or deficits that we have according to these results. The company can make adjustments, right? So that's the idea. Verify how the future looks like in terms of the cash that we're going to either have or like, as I mentioned, it will be a surplus or deficits in terms of the cash flow. So we can just be prepared for the future. So basically, the idea is that we have different sources for the cash flow forecasting. Of course, we have in first place the receivables and payables, the ones that will be the core of our company's activities. But as well, we have the liquid funds or cash, manual expenses or revenues, and the sales and purchases. Then other type of analysis that we can as well perform, including the fixed assets, because we depreciate and we as well have disposals when we sell our fixed assets. In other words, acquisition, which is well part of even the fixed asset is anyway a purchase. And then we have service orders. This is only for maintenance, or it is a special module that we have. But as well, we review it when we have that implemented for our customers. Now, with GL budgets as well, because we can think of, well, we have specific goals in the future, and we can specify some type of criteria or thresholds for different accounts and compare them then later. Also, jobs and taxes. Jobs is a project management module that we have, and the taxes will resulting from our local tax authorities requirements. Then as well, we need to apply those requirements and have the analysis affecting similarly our cash flows. Now, in first place, in order to start working, we need to understand some concepts. The first part is the chart of cash flow. For cash flow, which means that we are going to be, if you can see here, we have the same modules that I explained. Here we are going to be working with this because sometimes it's important for us to define some type of different cash flows. What I'm expecting to show, just as an example for this webinar, will be the analysis of an entire company, but there are other type of ratios and cash flow that we would like to compare, maybe only payables against receivables without taxes, right? So the idea is that whenever we create a cash flow, we need to specify which accounts and modules we would like to use. And then later, just for us to know, we can create different type of cash flow analysis. Also, we have the payment terms, because for all our customers, we have the payment terms code, meaning that after an invoice is created, we are expected to receive a payment after a specific period of time that we have negotiated with the customer. So we are going to as well ask the customer what will be that specific period, so we can actually configure in the customer card the cash flow payment terms code, which in this example is 1 month and 8 days. So meaning that 1 month and 8 days, if you pay before these 8 days, you get a discount, okay, for sales operations. So that's also a typical configuration that we have in Business Central. And the cash flow setup is a component where we just have a specific window that we connect. If you can see this screen, the cash flow setup has, first of all, the same accounts that we are going to specify, but also the frequency where we desire to calculate for the cash flow. In my example, will be a weekly analysis. And this specific card is created. So once we set up, but we might like to add Cortana to this analysis, and we as well have a second window where we actually just specify, as well as we did for Business Central, just to have an idea. We also specify for Cortana the accounts to analyze for us. Then we have a specific window that we call the Assure AI, where we are going to specify the period type for the analysis, monthly, weekly, etc. And mainly here, I will tell in Business Central, Cortana, the horizon for the analysis and the historical periods to analyze, which for me, I strongly recommend go as long as you can, because the historical periods are super important. For me, will be 2 years, but I recommend at least 1. And then the horizon analyze for periods in the future. So if it's for months, well, if it's June, that will be, if it's August, that will be September, October, November, and December, the rest of the year. I will present that in my demo. And I have the time series model in the right, which will be ARIMA, which is a weighted average model, meaning that the oldest periods for the analysis won't be as important as the last 3 or 4 current periods that we have, because, well, what happened in previous years is super important, but as well, according to our analysis, well, we expect to have more affection to our cash flow coming from the last periods than the older periods, of course. And then the variance, I have 35% here. The variance is a statistical model when we have different type of, when we don't find specific trends in our cash flow, well, we are not going to receive cash flow forecasts. This is because, let's say that, for instance, COVID last year actually affected a lot of companies where they actually stopped selling, basically. And then it would be very, very difficult to consider to make a cash flow analysis for 2 years, including last year numbers that were really affected. So it's not going to actually tell us the real history. And plus, since we are forecasting, well, we do not expect to have a wrong inputs, because then the forecast will be correct. So if I, by then adding the variance to our statistical model, I will be making sure that that 35% of variance in comparison to the last year, then which is actually the case at this point, would then be affecting my model, and then I will be then considering maybe only this year to make my analysis, just as an example of what is the variance. So very good. As well, with these setups that we have, we also have a wizard that is going to help us with the actual configuration. Let me show you. I actually prepare a video just for this assisted setup that we as well have available, right? And here is my Business Central screen. And we have a special assisted setup, okay, that we can just run. Actually, mine is already done, but let's just anyway start. We have the setup cash flow forecast. which is going to make us to help us to make basic configurations. So let's just review it. It's actually part of what we have, what I have explained. So this setup is going to be then our wizard. This is telling me that I have a forecast created, all right, which is my case. And so for me, I'm just going to just continue. And then this is going to now ask me for some specific account that I can configure for the prediction, okay? So the accounts that I have related here will be my cash accounts, in this example for my liquid funds, right? Where I will be verifying how the historical information from these two, and then how often I would like to update the cash flow forecast, because this will be presented for the people that will be analyzing this, and that will be on a daily basis. So you can change it as long as you have a subscription with Assure. We can connect this service actually for any of you who want to implement Cortana. And then we are going to activate it here, basically the check mark that we see below. So once we get the description, we can help you also modeling the cash flow. We explain you behind the scene what is this analysis with artificial intelligence, so you can see the model actually before going with the automation and understand what it will be doing, right? Which is part of also of this webinar. I'm going to present you with a model that how it works with transactions that I will be posting, so you can check it. Now, for the taxes as well, I'm going to explain to Cortana how often I report to the tax authorities, because at this point as well, I might be preparing a check for the tax authorities or something like that, which in advance will Cortana will be then as well forecasting that I have this fixed expenditure, right, on a specific periodic basis. In my example, that will be every 20 days, okay? The window to pay actually then this specific variable of for every company, then it will be held in a special GL account, and I just need to set it up, and that's it. Once I have just configured this basic information, plenty of configurations behind the scene will be just done for us. All right, I'm going to as well explaining you those concepts when in a moment when I present the actual demo in Business Central. Now, as well, you might figure out, or you might be thinking now that not everything is done on the specific period where we are actually just working. Sometimes I have expected expenses and expected revenues. For instance, in the first window, I have my salaries that I pay $30,000 on a monthly basis. And I want to analyze my cash flow until December of 2021. So I expect to pay the salaries, and I'm going to input that in the cash flow manual expenses a window. The same happens for revenues. Some of you might already expect to have other type of revenues that are not maybe calculated on in Business Central. Meaning that, for instance, we have sales orders that we program for the future. We know that we'll be selling specifically for maybe not for retail, for the retail sector, but for the wholesaling part, your customers will be scheduling some sales in advance, maybe 2 weeks, even months in advance for you. So you can be prepared with those type of transactions. But those are calculated in Business Central. We input the dates to deliver a shipment. We input and we have due dates for the payment terms when we expect to receive the money from, or the cash received from customers. But some others, like interest revenues coming from loans or bank or investments, let's say, we don't currently have that calculated in Business Central. So every type of cash flow should be inputted, cash flow entry should be inputted in Business Central. And for that, we have the cash flow manual revenues as well. So you can input any type of expense or revenues that you expect to have either in the future, or either we don't have any entry that we currently don't calculate in Business Central. So you can continue adding up variables to your cash flow. So you might understand that this is quite complex. Okay, so we have as well the possibility when we see the chart working to us as well add expenses and revenues. So we can just model the actual cash flow. Now, at the end, what I have as a center is a cash flow card. In this cash flow card, I'm going to be adding as well other type of parameters that it will be affecting for instance, if I manage discounts, a payment tolerance, if I work with the GL budgets that I want to start considering in the to analyze in the cash flow, right? And then you can see now the first result. This is cash flow forecast, okay? And I'm going to explain you what this chart means. But you can see that I have all the modules, the receivables, the purchase orders, the payables, all the activities that you do in your departments, well, in one single chart is already depicted here with colors. Okay, this is the way it works. If, for instance, the purchase orders or the receivables you can see in green, well, will be depicted on a monthly basis or however you want to analyze. And then we use all these bars for the different periods, and this gray line, well, is the actual cash flow result. If you can see here, what I have is that at some point, well, I have plenty of expenditures in green in the third period, starting from left to right, and then my cash flow will be increasing according now to Cortana. All right, so let's explain now what is happening. Why is Cortana telling me that I will be going and increasing my cash flow, having surpluses? What happened behind the scene? If I have plenty of operations affecting now my company, which then how the cash flow analysis is actually resulting like this. It's a positive or it could be a negative trend. It depends, okay? So this is the actual analysis that every financial operator, CFO, or people in charge of the financial department working with this type of analysis should be just verifying to check the performance of the company, not only in the present, but in the future now with Cortana experiences, right? So now, once that I have explained the basic components of what I have, I'm just going to now open Business Central and give you now the actual demo. All right. I was explaining now basically some the starting components. Here I have Business Central, and as well I have the cash flow forecast here. Okay, so you can see here that for this company at this point, the cash flow analysis is actually negative. Okay, you can see even it's in red. And in June, I actually make some expenditures. The first thing that I do with the cash flow analysis is that, well, I should check why is this negative. Actually, I did it on purpose because once in a while, you might be running under a situation of replenishing your company. And I have here $99,000 that I used as an investment, replenishing all my items that I have for the rest of the year. Just in this normal scenario, I spent $93,000. That's why currently my cash flow is presented at negative. But this is normal. I expect to have this type of a review for this period, which is currently negative. I have done a great investment in the inventory that I will be using for the company. I'm working in a Kronos demo company, currently actually working with the items that are furniture. So in this moment, just to show the type of items that I use, I have all these tables and chairs and so on, right? Now, what happened then later, when I just continue working with this, I see this part, okay, and I need to understand the cash flow to understand if this number is okay, okay? Now, the cash flow will be then coming from the cash flow account, which is the first thing I need to explain. The cash flow account will be set up by your accountant or tell us what will be part of the analysis. Well, for the regular cash flow analysis, for me, I have my receivables, payables, liquid funds, well, the liquid funds are specified, but in this case, not only with the liquid fund statement, but I specify specific GL accounts, basically. That will be, well, my cash accounts, let's say. You can see the number one for the inventory type of accounts that I have here, okay? And then other entries like fixed asset budgets or disposals, which is currently zero, okay? So I haven't sold any type of item. So I just need to click on new and start inserting all the accounts that I already understand that in my company I might be having income or expenses. Receivables and payables, for you to know, are the most important type of entries for our cash flow analysis all the time. And then here for the payables, I use setup. What is this? Is this an entry, or you want to start creating a reporting or summarizing to have the total, right? And then start working with a new GL account that you create. Is similarly to this. You can just set up your codes. You can see that I start with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. The name of the actual account and the sources. Let me just explain how it works. For me, the edit list, the actual entries that I input are already pre-configured in Business Central to actually have the total balances for the modules that I will be using. So for instance, you want to contemplate the sales orders, you don't have to input the sales order document numbers or anything like that. For this, I will be including then the actual balance, and Business Central is going to verify for me the total for the sales orders that I currently have in the system, okay? And so on. For receivables, I have a source type. So this is the core of the actual analysis we're going to do. I just set up with all these sources, and this is going to be then extracting for me the information, and I just have to input a new text according to however you want to name your actual accounts. But you know that behind the scene, we have all this type of entries, okay? Also, I have entries coming from Azure AI technology, because sometimes, yes, in the actual Azure experiment, I could also create some other type of inputs. But for now, I'm just going to remain with the basics. And what Business Central is doing now is, for instance, let's analyze the taxes, and it's going to immediately verify the tables related to tax and bring to the table all the entries from purchase orders, sales orders, tax entries from journals or sales orders as an example, and then input here the actual values that I will be then using. All of these are the actual entries for my taxes account for the cash flow. Remember, this is not your actual chart of accounts. This is a new type of account, cash flow account, that I will be using. But the only difference is that I won't be able to post every entry. So Business Central is going to do it. That is going to do that for me. So this is the first component that I need to start setting up. And then, as well as mentioned that, your customers have as well a requirement for us for the payment terms, because for instance, I have here the customer card for a Datsun Corporation. Now they have a balance for the total sales and the total cost. But most importantly, we need to specify out of the 80,000 that I have sold, and then they still need to pay me $1,339. The balance due already is $996. Okay, so when am I expecting to receive this specific money? Okay, almost $1,000. Well, I need, of course, they have different type of payment terms for every transaction and every invoice, okay? But for me, for the cash flow analysis, I need to specify sort of a standard payment term only for cash flow analysis. Remember that I won't be affecting the actual payment terms that I have set up for this customer, because this comes from a negotiation. How often I will need to receive a payment from the customer, every 10, 14, 15 days, and so on. But for the cash flow payment terms, this will be the average that I actually receive money from the customer. So it's like one step beyond, not what you negotiated, but in reality, in a standard or average, how often this customer is actually paying. For me, for now, will be just exactly the same. The cash flow payment terms then needs to be configured for every customer. Okay, so that's the expectation for the payments I will be receiving. And then I'm gonna go and open the cash flow setup. The cash flow setup, then when I just open it for the first time, it's going to be required because the Azure AI Gallery needs to understand, okay, I have everything in Business Central and I can just start analyzing this, but now as well I have to review what I will be inputting before I create my own accounts. And now after I created my accounts, I need to tell to Cortana, in this setup, Cortana is asking me, what will be your receivable cash flow account? So basically just start inputting from your previous accounts that you have set up into the accounts window related to the cash flow setup, and one by one start configuring what Cortana needs. Do you have budgets? Do you have fixed asset disposals? And just start entering the information. Then as well, let me just show you.
I didn't understand that.
Sorry. Now, I have the taxes, how often I will report to my tax authorities, because with this, I will be then just informing Cortana how often I will be paying to my tax authorities. And that's a fixed expenditure, as many others, but this is very important, right? So because as well, Cortana will be checking that, inputting that information, expecting to be paid. And for the future, understand that that will be affecting my cash flow. Now, for my period type in the Azure AI, I can expect the experiment in the Azure AI Gallery that I actually have. Well, the Azure Gallery actually works reviewing the service will be checking my horizon to have in the future, what will be the presentation of the forecast for me? Well, 4 months in the future, analyzing 2 years in the past. And like I said, we have different type of statistical models, well, that we currently have available. And the variances for me, at least as a best practice, 35%. Okay, so that's it. Once I have this information set up, I will be then just telling Cortana my requirements for my analysis once I start creating the cash flow. Okay, so for me, I will be then inputting any other type of expense, let's say manual. This is the actual cash flow. Manual, I have both type of manual adjustments, expenses, for the expenses that you know in the future we will be having, and the cash flow manual revenues, okay? So let's say that I expect to have interest revenues. I'm just going to add another entry. And I expect to, well, I have many other type of branches that are not currently in this company, and I expect to have, let's say, intercompany transactions in the future. Just another type of example so you can have an idea into company transactions, okay? And regularly, or I will be budgeting a transfer money or sources from one company to other, maybe 3,000 for liquid funds for the rest of the year. The recurrence will be, I don't know, every week I will be transferring from another company. And then I will be doing this until the end of the year. So hopefully you get now the idea. I'm now inputting transactions that I will be having. And I know that will be then as well important for me to understand that this is also available. Okay, so you understand now that I'm connecting. Let me just open the forecast model. How do we work with this? We just pay a subscription, a monthly subscription to Azure to have different type of models. I have inventory predictions, forecast predictions like we are showing now. What else? A payment, customer payment prediction, do the actual AR analysis or accounts receivable payments, historical information from your customers as well. I can predict if we are going to be receiving payments at some point. The idea of the Azure technology is presented in another website. I forgot to mention that we are working in the cloud environment. Okay, that we connect to Azure technology. We have the AI gallery, the one that and this gallery has all my experiments. Well, the ones that I used to work and even to present for use to our customers to have the state-of-the-art technology and understand what is available out in the market for you to start purchasing and how it helps, which is the case currently now. So, well, the model for my cash flow starts, well, this is quite technical. I'm just going to go with the idea of what it does. But we have, through web services, I connect my company in Business Central to Azure Machine Learning Studio, okay? So this is a type of machine learning is, let's say, algorithms that I will be preparing behind the scene. So basically we have an input from your company, we run our scripts, and then we have a service output through web services, okay? And that will be giving information back to Business Central, running my time series with all the experiments that I have other type of experiments like I mentioned, and I just run my model and I just deploy my web services, or if we have somebody technical, well, through APIs and URAs that I just created and we consume back in Business Central. This is how we connect it, okay? And as well, we have my experiment behind the scene, so I could continue working and adding more parameters. So at this point, you could even enter data manually or not. You could actually, we can just model that for you. And after that, with the actual data that we have, we as well run the scripts. Okay, I don't want to actually go behind the scene. We might have actual webinars for machine learning that if you want to understand how this service from Azure actually works, okay? But basically, I have my studio and different galleries for different type of experiments that I have for in my Cortana Intelligence subscription, right? Running behind the scene for me. Look at this. This is Azure. And well, Cortana is one of the services. Azure offers different type of services like, of course, in the cloud, databases, hostings, virtual machines, and applications that you could trigger from Azure already designed with other consultants like me who are working together to make your world better. Now, okay, that's the idea. Now, I want to just go back with the important topic for today, which is the cash flow. Here, you can see different type of charts for my current company, my finance performance. Let me see my date, my settings. Okay. Now, I actually cannot work with this. My subscription is only for starting from April. Sorry for that. I need to change to licensing. My demo licenses work in April. So I would like to benefit from that type of license that I have. And well, the cash flow. Let's say that for now, the cash flow analysis is presenting negative income. I can see with colors that the purchase orders are actually in yellow. In June, I have a big purchase. So that's why I'm starting from negative. Look at my total cash flow. And it's really, really bad currently. If I just don't understand cash flow, that will be the case. Now, let me just come back and work with the license date that I actually have and recalculate my forecast. This is on the fly. Any accountant could at any moment recalculate their cash flow activities. And look at this. For the webinar and only for the webinar, I have to go back to the past through the licensing processes that I have for me to actually work with these services. But if I were in April, I have a surplus for $167,000, okay, for April. And then I have planned some purchases for June. That's why my cash flow, you can see the green line in this chart, actually went down a lot through the red. Now actually, my module, well, Cortana, I don't know why I did it. My mistake, I was making some experiments, but it changed the color of the modules. Now, instead of yellow, the purchase order module being analyzed by Cortana changed to green. This is not an error. This is because the machine learning is actually going to do that with specific parameters that I actually use. Because we can configure the colors. Maybe you can say, if I go down below an amount, please portray in red a value as an example. Okay, but basically, coming back, I have all my modules: receivable, liquid funds, purchase, taxes, everything, all my company depicted here. And let me just explain as well, the entries that I have are depicted on a monthly basis, all right? But maybe working in a quarter, well, it will be maybe looking more understandable for me. It depends how you would like to just depict it, even for weeks. No, I don't like this type of presentation. Let's go back to month better. Very good. Just once I have this, you could edit your manual or your expenditures, revenues, or expenses, correct? You can see that apparently my current activities as they are working now, and this is the way a CFO might be working at the end, the type of presentation that he expects from his accountant to have, okay? So even with my big investment in June for purchases, I still have in the gray line a positive a cash flow for the future in the following months, okay? Even though when I just presented in June, only that cash flow analysis was negative because I wasn't actually considered the entire historical information. Remember that cash flow actually works also with historical information, specifically for the forecasting, okay? But at this point, if I just review the actual cash flow for June, it will be 100% negative due to this investment. Now, let's just verify. I have also in August, if I just take a look at what Cortana is presenting to me, I like this value, this yellow value as well presented as sales order is, I'm filtering now by hovering over the sales orders. Look at the value in my chart, okay? It's sort of yellow. And I like this value because in August, apparently somebody is selling and I expect to have a sales order. Here I have the source order number is a sales order that yes is for, and you can see the document even, the person who is doing this as well. Well, this is part of the CFO, or well, not only the CFO, the financial department. Yes, they sort of sold some of the items that I'm planning to replenish in June. Let's think of I'm in April. So in the future, now I expect to have future sales. That's the idea that I will expect. It depends on the sector. Like I mentioned, this is more related to the wholesales. In the retail world, my analysis is more related to the maybe only 1 or 2 periods in the future, not only 6 months in advance, okay? But as well, it works. It's more precise than just because it helps you because the retail world is super fast, it's very dynamic, and I don't have to make even this type of analysis, okay? to be realistic. So why not to have help from Cortana? So $75,000 plus taxes coming from this sales operation already scheduled to sell Coca-Cola, Fantas, and other type of items. But for me, the important aspect of this operation by taking or having a microscope is because I have a due date. This is important, even though I have a sales operation, I'm not taking into account the actual sales income, because for that you will need to pay expenses, you will need to pay maybe freight services, insurance, so you can send the items to the customer and so on. But what is important for me, at least for the sales operation, is the actual payment I will be receiving, and as well in August 31st. Let's just change it. Maybe it's not going to be in August. Maybe another negotiation will be for September, and I just changed the due date. Okay, just as an example of the actual regular operations. What else? Let me even create another sales order. Why not? But with other type of parameters, so you can see how it works with Cortana. And I will be, just selling again. This is a sales order that I'm currently doing that for me, let's say I will be receiving my payment. Okay, I'm planning to be selling on the, if this was April, well, in May, in the following month, and the due date apparently for this negotiation will be as well expected to be paid, but after 1 month. This is coming from, let me just input some lines just to finish my sales operation, or at least expected sales for 1,000. Let's just sell a little bit more. Oh, no, 20,000. No, 10,000. Okay, I expect 20,000 for this operation. Okay, remember I'm making wholesale sales for a wholesaling sector. Okay, that's why I expect to have 20,000, maybe a container that I'm selling or something, and so on. Now, for me, the payment terms are to be expected to be paid in 1 month. But if I actually pay within 8 days of discount date calculation, well, I will be having a 2% off discount, okay? Regular or standard parameters. You can change any type of payment terms. Remember, this is very important for the company, for the cash flow. And as well, we have other type of functionality so you can receive the payments. But for now, it's only about dates. This variable is important. The same happens for purchases. When I expect to pay for a purchase. Well, now that I have done all these manual entries and sales orders and the analysis, the only thing that I would like to do, I won't change any parameter in my actual forecast. This is the way for, at least for now, for the webinar, it looks very good. Yeah, 2% information on a monthly basis. You could be more accurate if you do it on a weekly basis. But for now, I will be recalculating my forecast. And that's why I do this on a regular basis, because at this point, I have some entries, right? I look at this, I expect to have some receivables, right, that I inputted for 1,000 for one these receivables that I expect to have in May after I perform a sales operation. Okay, so receivables for 43,000, it increased my cash flow. Okay, and remember that the yellow lines are the ones that I expect to have. So in one single screen, you are going to have all your actual inputs, and this is how you can recalculate the cash flow on a regular basis to review the actual entries, because at some point, even this can help you to review whether your let's say, like we are doing here, we perform in green the purchase for replenishment, and I expect now, if I continue selling or accommodating this inventory to my customers, I would continue to have a healthy company by just looking at my cash flow forecast and how this gray line is expecting to have. If I just don't know how to review the cash flow, in the previous chart, we saw that everything was negative, correct? Well, that happened in terms because I never run actually this experiment until this live webinar, and through the total investment, I don't know at this point. What this is doing, you saw that my real investment is currently negative. I'm under risk in my real operation, but by reviewing the historical information that I have in this fictional company inputted from the last year, I expect to have majority of sales operation from July to December. And by reviewing the history, that's why then I expect to have to continue now selling in my best part of the year. So that's why I start to replenish. I'm planning now my replenishing process, making the investment now, because Cortana in advance know that by reviewing the last year history, remember that I had COVID, so that's why I had to input fictional figures, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to prepare the cash flow analysis, all right? So, and we expect you in your own company to have exactly the same scenario, all right? So for now, I'm presenting this because it was good for this time of with the COVID scenario that we had. It is really difficult for us to really start forecasting. We need some help at some point. It's very difficult to make at this point investments. How should I then start working? I have accountants working on that. I have even replenishment purchasers that will be then making all this type of entry. They have a lot of experience in terms of what they have sold. But now, from this part of the year, surely I could be then maybe inserting for my analysis, like I did for this webinar, inserting manual entries to at least make Cortana understand how I normally sell. And from my point of view, this will be a good time of the year, in this year, now to start making decisions on good investments, since the economy will be now enhancing and recovering from what has happened in the last year scenario. So that will be the explanation for my forecast analysis. Remember that we understand that in your company, you have other type of criteria for different sectors, but as long as we have good discussions and review, then the connection with Cortana, we're going to be getting real with the time as well with the Cortana experience and the forecast that we have presented through these webinars. How this assistant is going to help us now to make better decisions, or at least to be more realistic in terms of what we have and what our analysis are. We don't have to export this to Excel and start checking because the idea at the end for the cash flow, we have the actual cash flow statements where we see the figures, but with that, we go one step beyond, and then we are going to be able to perform charts, automated analysis, and with colors and all these beautiful features without having to really invest too much time in this type of operations. So that's it. Thank you very much for your time. If you have any questions or want to contact me for future webinars, I only actually do webinars from my customer suggestions. And you can contact me at noe.wellman@optimus.guru. That's my email. And well, what I normally do is just present Business Central technologies, or even a Business Central functionality for all the modules that we have. We just go with the classics, okay? We're for accountants, for warehousing, and et cetera, all the available modules, plus some features that we have integration with other technologies. You saw today Azure through the last webinars, and then, well, we have other type of technologies such as SharePoint, Power Automate to make our own apps in Android, Power BI to have reports connect, live reports to connect to our companies, and so on. So there's plenty of information that I will be more than glad to present. So my name once again was Noe. I'm finishing now the webinar for today, and like every week, I'm presenting Business Central. So you are invited to any of my webinars. Please just contact us at optimus.group, where you can see also our training agenda. Thank you very much for your time, and see you next week for our next webinar. Bye-bye.